The last one that I want us to look at real quick is David. It's not hard to understand why David doubted. You get chased by hundreds of guys that want to kill you. The king wants you dead. And all you are is a lonely little shepherd boy. Grown up from a shepherd boy. Yeah, you killed a giant, but how's that helping you now when you're hiding out in a cave? As David writes in Psalm 22, verses 1 to 5, he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me from the words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but I find no rest. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our fathers trusted, they trusted, and you delivered them. To you they cried, and they were rescued. In you they trusted, and were not put to shame. Psalms is littered with men who doubted and were struggling. Psalms is littered with passages of David doubting and wondering where was God when he was hiding out in a cave, when he was running for his life. These are great men of faith, men that we look at and we put them in this hall of fame, and we say, how in the world could they doubt? They didn't doubt. And a lot of us sit there and we say, oh man, if I could be like Abraham and have the faith that he had, that would be awesome. It takes some time to get there. And we're going to see that. You know, doubts, like I said, doubts can happen to anybody. It can happen to any of us. I watched a movie maybe a year and a half ago. It was a little documentary done on Billy Graham's life. And pretty interesting movie if you ever have a chance to watch it. But it covers him from in high school when he got saved, up through college, and then on through his ministry. And the first time he got up to speak, he said he was as nervous as anything, and he's like shaking, you know? And he had like tons of pages of information that he wanted to share with the congregation. And he gets up and he just starts shouting, you know, this hell and fire and brimstone's message. And then he looks at the clock and only 2 minutes has passed. And he's like, but I'm done. And then he goes back into it again and he does it again. He looks at the clock another 2 minutes. He's like, man, what am I going to do? So he just keeps giving the same thing, the same 2-minute section for like 30 minutes. And he's like, I can't do this. I can't speak. I cannot stand in front of anybody and share. And he doubted, and he grew into the greatest evangelist of our time. Anybody can doubt about anything. But what do we do with those doubts? Our doubts should be brought to Christ. When we begin to doubt and we begin to wonder, you know, what is God doing here? Or is God here? Or is the Bible really true? Or can I believe what the Bible is telling me? Our first response should be to go to Christ. And we see that in the passage that we read from Mark about this father. He's seen his son grow up dealing with a demon possessing him. Imagine that, parents, watching your son or your daughter be thrown into seizures and ending up in fires, ending up in a river, drowning, and you have to keep your watch on them constantly because at any point they could go into a seizure and kill themselves by jumping into a fire. They can't talk, they can't tell you what's going on. Imagine the grief that this father must have. Imagine the hurt, the heartache that he has, doubting, as a Jewish man, doubting whether God exists. How can my son go through this and God exists? Then a glimmer of hope. He hears about Christ going around healing people. So he brings him and he says, you know what, I probably can't get to him, so I'll just go to the disciples. They're much more accessible than Jesus because there's thousands of people gathered around him. And the disciples can't do it. Now he's like, oh, it's over. And so they get him up to Jesus. And he shares his story with Jesus, and Jesus has him bring the son to him. And he goes with another convulsion. And the father says, if you can you help me? Jesus responds, if I can, anything's possible with those who believe. It's like when Bella asked me to fix something at home. Daddy, can you do this? Please, I got this covered. Sometimes. It's not working. Oh, it just needs new batteries. I can do that. And here's his father coming to Christ, saying, if you can, please help me. And Jesus says, if I can, this is nothing. This is a cakewalk for me. Please, I got this. But he uses it as a teachable moment. We are to bring our doubts to Christ. Because Christ can handle our doubts. When the Father says to Jesus, if you can, it's not like Jesus was offended. Oh, forget it, see you. And leaves. That's not what he did. He's not offended. He's not like, you know what? This is too big of a demon for me to handle. This is too big of a situation for me to handle. God can handle, Christ can handle our doubts. It's not like he's sitting up in heaven right now going, yeah, Dave's doubting me. I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm just going to go in the corner and cry because Dave doubts after everything I've done for him. He's not offended. He's not upset. He's not angry. He's not going to just abandon us because we've hit a wall in our faith to doubt. Christ understands our doubts. He can relate to what we're going through. He understands how frail the human body is, how frail the human mind is. He walked in our shoes for 33 years to understand that. And so when we hit a wall, he gets it. He dealt with his disciples for 3 years. How many times did he have to put up with Peter doubting him? Peter gets out of the boat and walks on the water for a few steps and then doubts whether or not Jesus can really continue to hold him up. And he starts to sink. And Christ helps him back into the boat. He understands why we doubt. He understands that we will doubt. And Christ is able to answer our doubts. When he looks at the Father and he sees the Father and he's wondering about this Father's anguish. And the Father is dealing and struggling with his Son and this demon that has possessed him. Christ understands where he's coming from, and then he's able to answer him and heal his Son. And as we continued on in the story, Christ releases his Son from that demon and tells him to never enter the Son again. And with that, the demon's gone. Christ answers our doubts every time. Now, we don't normally face demon possession here in America, and what we would, there's a lot of movies on exorcism, but we don't normally see that kind of demon possession. But there's still doubts. We still struggle with things in our lives that will bother us, that will keep us from going to God. And God answers those doubts if we're willing to come to him with those doubts. I think of this past summer, just a small one for me, this past summer when I left the last church and I'm like, what's going to happen now? This is a horrible economy. How am I going to find a job? And I only have a certain amount of time before things are going to get tight, and I need to make sure that I have money coming into this house. And I went around, I would spend 8-9 hours out of the house a day, going around handing out resumes, looking for a job, doing all kinds of other stuff, and I'm stressing and I'm doubting whether or not I'm going to get a job. Is God really going to provide for me? What's going on? Becky and I would sit and talk about it. And then finally, one day, it was when I was driving around handing out resumes, we're on the phone with each other talking, and she goes, you know what? If they call, they call. If they don't, they don't. We got to trust that God's going to do what's right. And we just got to give it over to him. And I said, you know what? You're right. We're just going to trust that God is going to do it. And we went to God in prayer. The next day, no lie, the next day, Pastor Randy contacted me about the position here, and James Toyota called me about a position at the dealership. The next day. I'm like, woo, way to go, God. God can handle it. God will answer those doubts. I shared this last week in our life group. 2 weeks ago in our life group. Jeff asked a question of things that we struggle with still, that we question with God, and one of them is my parents. Are my parents in heaven, or are they now? And I remember when I was at PBU, my first year there, fully understanding, not fully, but starting to understand the Bible and understand salvation and what it really meant and how we were supposed to live our lives in light of that and what that meant. And I remember sitting in chapels and sitting in Bible classes, doubting, wondering, what in the world happened to my parents? Doubting God's ability to comfort me on that. And that was something that I was going to have to carry around for the rest of my life. And I still struggle with it at times, but God has continually, when I go to him about that doubt, when I go to him about that concern, continually come to me and understood it and answered it and helped me through it. And he understands that I will continue to come back to it, probably for the rest of my life. But he understands our doubts, and he answers our doubts.